I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Jenilee, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Now tell my listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am Jenilee, and I'm a mom of 3 young adult women on the spectrum. And I have a life coaching business. So I work with families that have spectrum impact of some kind and just helping them navigate what that looks like for their family.
3 daughters.
Yes, I do. 21, 19, and 17.
Wow. Okay. So how young were they? And at the talk to me about the first one with the first diagnosis. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was a long journey. I homeschooled when the girls were little, and I knew there were quirks and specific learning needs, things that were different. I'd listen to other moms talk about their kids and what their kids were doing, and I would think, well, mine's way ahead of that, or mine's not doing well at that. Even when my middle daughter was about 18 months old, she was putting a puzzle together, one of those big 24-piece puzzles, and she would take the pieces of the puzzle and turn them methodically and put the puzzle together at like 18 months old. And I'm thinking that something's different about how her brain just works.
Right.
I would talk to pediatricians. Nope, everything's fine. Your girls are great. They're healthy, right on track. But I was with them the most. And I just knew something's different about how they learn, about how they think, what holds their attention. So we went through some of the educational testing at 5th grade and 8th grade for my younger 2. High IQ, slow processing was diagnosed, ADHD. So we had some spectrum things happening that I had names for. They were in school at the time. They both had IEPs. But autism was still not a part of the discussion. They said the girls have good eye contact, they communicate well, all the things that we hear for girls.
Yep.
So it actually was in 2022, my middle daughter was in taking a college class, a dual enrollment college class, and taking psychology. And she was reading about autism. She was 18 years old. She came out of her room and she said, "Mom, I have autism."
Oh, wow. Good. How empowered of her to do that.
I know. And she was my puzzle. She was the little one doing the puzzles. And she came out and she's like, "Mom, I have autism." And I said, "Well, what do you want to do about that?" I've always thought that. We've talked about it. I've always thought that. What would you like to do about that? And she said, I want to get a diagnosis because I want to know. I want to know what's happening. And I said, okay. So we found an educational psychologist. And kind of in that discussion, my youngest was in occupational therapy for slow processing and ADHD. And that occupational therapist said, if you're taking Annalise, you probably should take Abby too. And I thought, oh, I never really thought about that. So both of the girls went through the process at the same time, and both were diagnosed at the same time. And my oldest was in college already and noticing some things. So she was seeing a counselor and discussing it with her. She hasn't been officially diagnosed, but she's done some of the tests online and things. And we have plenty of spectrum happening between the three of them.
So talk to me, educate all of us a little bit on what slow processing means and how that works in combination with the high IQ.
Oh, it's confusing. It's a confusing thing to see because they're so smart and they're so good at putting things together and figuring things out. But yet simple things like remembering when my youngest was learning her sight words, every day we would talk about specific list of sight words. She'd have them, she'd know them. The next day we'd come back to it. It was like they were gone out of her brain. And she would be so frustrated and I would be frustrated for her. And so learning about slow processing, that like this is all happening in her brain and she's having a hard time getting it out into words. She's having a hard time putting on paper. She would kind of stutter with her words because she's thinking so quickly and she can't get it out her mouth fast enough to tell me the story. It can be extremely frustrating for them, but once we had words for it, once we knew what was happening, it was much easier to navigate.
I'm thinking in slow processing. I'm thinking of that in terms of, let's say, you're out and about and somebody, that you don't know grabs your arm, and where somebody else might go, hey, what are you doing? A slow processor might have to take a longer beat or not even know what to do. Am I on the right track with something like that?
You are on the right track with that. It impacts not only learning styles, but it impacts, I have to order at the coffee shop and someone's wanting information right now, and I don't know how to give that information or what they want. And someone just took my arm and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to think this is a friendly thing or not a friendly thing. It just is so much thinking to process an event or a situation or something they're trying to learn. And it's exhausting for them.
It is exhausting. I have the same thing. So, and I've been in situations where I was actually physically in danger. I was being targeted by a bully of some kind of predatory behaving person. And the way that it was responded to by police or, whoever was, well, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you do anything? Why did you just sit there? And that still happens today because people think, oh, well, either you're dumb, you're not very intelligent, that you can't get the words out, or you can't just the act of the physical touch adds a whole nother layer of thing. So it's interesting to me how, I guess I want listeners to realize, like, it's in situations like this, this is why they say, what is it? 6 out of 10 women that have autism will be assaulted in some way or another because of this particular thing. And it doesn't have anything to do with you're dumb or you had bad parenting or you didn't learn in class about say no, or it has nothing to do with that.
No, and if you looked at my girls, you'd never know. It's not like you can look at them and think, oh, they might react differently. There's nothing about them that in their looks or appearance or way of being until it happens.
Right.
Until the overwhelm's already happening or the shutdown or the not processing it the way that maybe someone else would until it's happening. And then then you can tell. But going into it, it's not like there's something about them physically that you could tell.
And even younger, when they're younger, I mean, there were many instances where I was being bullied and I didn't even know how to get to the point of thinking that that's what was happening because I was just like, my
Mhm.
brain was going at 50,000 miles an hour. And, you're like, you become the most powerful force of energy, but it's just stuck because it's all happening
Yep.
inside. And
Yep.
you have to know how to help get it out. So, what are some things that you do when you notice that they are on kind
Mhm.
of what I call full tilt, but it's all on the inside,
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's a spectrum, it's
right?
going to be different. And it's different for all my girls. My oldest, it's tears. It just comes out in kind of teary anger.
Mm,
Um, my middle, it's full shutdown, loses words, loses the ability to really interact or look at you. It's very shut down. My youngest, it's more of that meltdown, like yell, and she's just not sure what to do with all. It's so much emotion inside of her. What do I do with this? Um, I am learning, and we're all learning. Having the vocabulary is so important to know what's happening, to know why it's happening, and to be able to explain afterwards or even before, if you're with friends. Hey, if I get in a situation where I start to shut down or I start to cry, it's having words ahead of time so people around them can be aware of what could happen, how they could step in and maybe help and assist and advocate for them. As a mom, it's hard to think that my daughter could be just fine. And then maybe in a store, someone says something or does something, and then she's paralyzed and can't speak,
yes.
and no one's there to help her. So having the vocabulary to maybe if a policeman did show up, that and they would be able to help her calm down, that she would be able to say, I was having an autistic shutdown, or I was feeling overwhelmed and I lose my words when I get overwhelmed, giving them the confidence to put words to when they can, um, has been really helpful to kind of empower my girls and take the fear away of what if it happens, then they know this is what I can do when it happens.
Mm. How are you as a mom, noticing this in other kids and you can't really do or say anything because it's somebody else's child, but you see what's happening.
Again, I think vocabulary, maybe that mom doesn't have vocabulary for what's happening. She doesn't know. Uh, in my coaching work, I'm actually encouraging a couple moms right now to learn the vocabulary, learn the different things that could be happening so that if you're at Walmart and something's happening, you have words for what's happening for your child to then have the discussion with them when things are calm, when they're regulated, to talk about, hey, let's talk about what happened. What were you feeling? And generally, when, at least for my girls, when they're regulated and I ask them specific questions, how are you feeling? What led up to, what happened? They can generally explain in some way how they were feeling and what happened. And just having the vocabulary and the words can really, really equip everyone.
I think too, it's interesting to note, I mean, the addition of the ADHD with the autism adds
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
a whole new layer of complexity, and the extra layer absolutely includes that it absolutely can hide the autism.
Yes, 100%. And it can also look completely different if they have more of the hyperactive
Right.
side of ADHD. That with the autism is a complete contradiction, and it creates this war even inside my youngest, who's classic ADHD autism. I want to go do the things and experience all the things, and I'm exhausted and I can't do it.
I
She kind of,
tell her I'm a part of her fan club because I am the same way.
woohoo, yes. So she battles that within herself, the
Yeah.
contradiction of what's happening within herself. My middle is more attention, focus. is the problem. So she's not gonna go seek adventure or do anything. She's happy to sit in one spot. Um, but
That's
that
your reader, right? Your reader, a lover
Yes,
of
that's my
books.
reader. Yep. Yep. And then Elena, my oldest, she's kind of a mix of both. She's a blend. She can have that need to go experience and in a way, especially for medical practitioners, you see a girl who's having attention issues, they go right with the ADHD line.
Right.
And it really does mask these other underlying things that girls are so good at kind of masking and
Camouflaging. Yep.
camouflaging. Yeah,
I can walk around with lots of camo and I'm not really wearing any. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. Yeah. And having them find out, getting the diagnosis, learning the vocabulary, being able to put words to how they feel has helped them with confidence. It's helped them understand themselves, not be so frustrated with themselves, be kind to themselves and understanding, yeah, I don't have the same capacity as other people. I don't have the same energy as other people, but I have these really cool gifts and ideas, and it's given them kind of a pride in who they are and this
Good. Oh, that makes me feel so
unique
good.
neurodiverse world that they're living in. And of course, they have the special camaraderie of it's the three of them. They're kind of going through it together.
Yeah.
Um,
And they got a
but
mom that is supporting the heck out of them, which is just so
yeah, it's fun
amazing.
to watch them. Yeah, it's just fun to watch them discover and learn. And education is so important. When it comes to should we label them or not, I'm just label it, put the name on it, find out what it is, and help these kids grow and develop and learn and be successful in
Right.
the way that they're created to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about the fact that I wasn't diagnosed until 54. There's nothing I can do about that. Have I had my angry and upset moments about what it would have been like? Da, 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 of course, because allow myself to have the full range of things because I know that if I don't allow it, it'll pop up somewhere unexpected when I didn't want it to
Right?
pop out.
For
But
sure.
for them, I would say this from a 54-year-old woman, I would say to them, I went from my whole life, I just had this epiphany the other day, and I had it the day I was diagnosed, and then I remembered it just a couple days ago that I went from being someone who looked at my life as if I was going down this long hallway and every time a door that anybody else would be able to open and enjoy, right? And anybody
Mm-hmm.
else, if that door and that hallway just kept getting longer and longer. And I felt like I am just never going to get there. I'm never going to get and have the things in life that everybody else seems to be able to
Yeah.
do. And it's just this long slog, and I'll never get there. That's how I've always felt until I got diagnosed. And then I went to, oh, wait a minute. I completely flipped the script on myself and went,
Yep.
oh, now I look back at my life and I don't look at that long hallway anymore. Now I look at the long hallway of what I've been through and I go, my gosh, look at the journey I've been on. How
Yeah.
amazing. Look at how far I've come. So I went from
Yes.
never going to get there to look at how far I've come. And I don't mean
Yep.
that for anyone, because believe me, I can have a chip about things too. I don't mean that in a patronizing, oh, you were autistic and so be proud of the little things you've been able to do. I don't mean it like that at all.
Right.
I mean it like
Nope.
we know what we go through, what we've been through in life. It is unbelievably hard. So to be
Yes.
able to come to a point where you give yourself a clap on the back and say, and be in an empowered state like you do with your
Yep.
girls, that is life changing.
Yep. Yeah. To be able to see all the wins
Yeah.
and through all the challenges, the very real challenges, it it has its incredible challenges. And to be able to see them working jobs and getting their degrees and um, just navigating life as adults with the challenges
Right.
is just a beautiful thing.
How do you talk to them about, or how did they talk about things like, being careful around in situations where there could be a predatory behavior towards them, and how they deal with that, and because they are more because, well, I don't even need to say it, because we do have to be more careful.
Yeah. I think we're still having that discussion at the ages that they are. That's still, there's maybe still some fear around that for them of because they haven't had as much life experience, what will I do
Right.
if I'm faced with something? What will happen if I have a shutdown or a meltdown, or I can't put words to, or if something happens? I think they're still working through that. My hope is that with the words that they have, the knowledge that they have, that they will be able to feel equipped and
Right.
strong, and that they have resources. They're not stuck if they're in a workplace and someone is maybe misusing their talents, their skills, their willingness to jump in and get things done, or their deep dives, or they're being taken advantage of. There's so many ways that autistic gifts
Get
can
taken.
be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I want them to have boundaries. I want them to know it's okay to say no. They don't like conflict. They're not gonna
Yes.
speak up. They're not gonna tell someone, no, I can't do that. So because their life experience where they are, I think we're still very much in the thick of making sure they're prepared and they're ready and they have the skills that they need to face whatever comes, so that they don't feel limited or scared to not do the things.
Yeah, I think for, the practice part around being physical. I remember an activity I did with my son when he was very young, and there was some stuff going on where we were very concerned that he might get taken. There was a custody issue, and
Mhm.
of course, nothing happened, but we didn't know. It was very severe. And so I made him practice with me holding him and me going, okay, now you go ahead and yell and you squirm and you tell me no. And
Yep.
I think about that now, because there was another situation a couple years later where he utilized what I taught him to get out of a situation where he was going to be beat up by several kids.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, thank goodness we did that training. And I think about it now, because I didn't know about his diagnosis or anything that yet.
Right.
But I think about it now. I think that's what would have helped me, is that physical training to
Yep.
know that because we get so inside ourselves that we just can't, we just stand there, or or we try to exit as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And so it was I think for us, we need that extra help of teaching you
Yep.
how to say no, like practice saying no,
Hmm.
practice pushing away. That seems like a good way to help us get out of our bodies and our heads and
Yep.
put it out there. But we don't want to, the last thing we want to do is call attention to ourselves. So it's a big leap.
Right. It is. It is. And that I'm finding that same thing really in all of adulting, helping them
Yes.
adult. Uh, my oldest had a medical thing, and the bill I wanted her to call on it, because you want them to practice. You want
Right.
them, you can do this. You can call the number. It's a real person on the other side of the line. You can do this. And it became, the impending doom of I have to do something,
Yes.
create this massive amount of anxiety
Oh, yeah.
to just do the thing. And it would be so easy to just say, just call. But it doesn't work that way in their brains. You don't
Yep.
just do it. So there's this buildup. And I could tell if I force this, I'm we're forcing a shutdown or a meltdown. Like, this isn't,
Right.
she's already built it to the point of I can't follow through with this beautiful adulting lesson that I was hoping was going to be there. So I just handled it another way where I did call, but then I talked her through, this is what I did, this is what I said, this is how I did it. And I think those little ways of, it's just a different way of introducing. It's not like you just teach it once and then they get to go do it. There's this process that they have to go through to build the confidence, to be able to assert themselves, to make the phone calls, to talk to the boss, to it's a slower process of adulting, but again, it's wins. They're winning by battling through these things.
And you know what's interesting about it is, yes, it's a slower process and it's a different way, but I always felt like, and this is when I was still clueless, Magoo, about myself and my own diagnosis. I would go to these classrooms with, a fuzzy, cute dog that he was there to be with the kids, and all the classrooms were the, behavioral health classrooms. And I loved all of the teaching around boundaries and this is my bubble. And I thought, oh man, because I didn't see myself as autistic at that time. So I thought, man, that would be good in all classrooms. I mean, everybody, needs to learn how to do this stuff and to have boundaries and everything. And it made me kind of long for, I wish I, would have learned about those things when I was that little, and very grateful that at least some of the kids were learning those things now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's important for them to have, again, that vocabulary of, I need that space. I need that bubble. It's okay that I have these boundaries around my time and around my activity and around my sleep and around my zone out time or my gaming time, or these things that recharge them that maybe seem, just because an adult's needing to go play video games and zone out for a few hours, or those things that maybe don't fit the age, or they just need the freedom to be able to do those things for themselves to stay safe.
It's like there are these gifts that come with the way these brains work, right? There are these amazing gifts, but if you don't, I want the rest of the world to realize that it's not coddling someone. You're not, you're placating. You're actually helping someone be the best version of themselves, and you're honoring their process, and you're feeding them in order for them to really be able to share their gifts with the world, because they are really gifts.
They are. And I think anything we can do to help educate and bring about situations where my girls and young adults like them and teens and kids have opportunities to do things within those giftings in a way that they feel safe and heard and understood is a really great thing.
Absolutely. Well, oh my gosh, this is such a great show. It's the part of why I know now that I do shows like this where I don't present, questions ahead of time. This is what I'm going to ask, is because of what you talked about in the beginning. That would just be I did do shows like that for a long time. And then I realized they're terrible. Those shows are terrible. It's so much better to just discover as we go along, because I can rely on my brain to be able to get into a great conversation and do it at my own flow with the person and regulate my flow to that person. It doesn't always turn out well, as my listeners know, but it's going to be better this way than if I said, okay, Jenilee, I want you to, come in and these are the questions we're going to ask and Those won't be good for me. And I'll be more panicked.
Right. So, you're setting this up in a way that works for you. Exactly. And that's exactly what we talked about today.
It is. So, yeah. Well, tell our listeners, because I can't, you're like Mom of the Year award to me. What you're doing.
Thank you.
3 of them. My goodness. Are you like, and I can't even fathom if there were 3 of me, my mother would need help.
Yes, I also need boundaries and space.
so I imagine how much you can help people. So please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you.
Absolutely. My website is JenileeRachel.com, Jenilee, Rachel.com. And Jenilee Rachel's also on Instagram. You can reach out either place. I have a connect page and talks about coaching and the different things that I offer. And I would love to talk to other moms out there navigating the same thing.
Yeah, I encourage you all to give her a shout out and a look up on her website. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Converge Autism Radio and Mental Health News Radio.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin and Jenilee, and thank you for listening.
And I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.